Hi there, welcome to another edition of Talk Stocks. I'm your host, Keir Reynolds, and today we're lucky enough to have Derek Patenton with Nations Royalty Corp. Trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the ticker NRC. How you doing today, Derek?
I'm doing good, Keir. Happy to be here. Enjoying the conference.
Excellent. Yes, we're here at the SMI, the Swiss Mining Institute conference. It's November. We're in Zurich. It's halfway through kind of the first day. How was the morning for you?
It's been good. Lots of productive meetings, meeting with new investors, and good energy, and just been enjoying it so far. It's my first time here at this conference. So,
yeah, excellent. You've got a pretty unique story. I was reading about you, I think, right when you were announced as sort of joining the company. You joined shortly kind of after the IPO. Would you mind kind of taking us through your background?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. So I'm from Ontario, Canada originally. I'm a member of the Mohawks of the Bay Quinte First Nation. That's part of my, passion for getting involved in a company like this. And my undergrad was in mining engineering, so I've worked my whole life in mining and mining related sectors. I got my CFA, and then I worked 15 years mining investment banking at Canaccord Genuity, where I was mostly focused on mergers and acquisitions. I was very fortunate to get to work on a lot of big transactions, over $20 billion of equity value over that time, mostly focused in the gold space. And then I first learned about Nations Royalty in February 2024 during the IPO press release. And when I saw the idea for that company and the vision for Indigenous peoples of Canada building a mining royalty company of their own, I just thought it was a really great idea. It tackles some of the issues that the mining royalty space is facing today, and I just wanted to be a part of it. So I decided to pack up my banking job and jump into the issuer side on a royalty company.
Maybe you could give us a bit of an overview. So Nations Royalty Corp is a little different spin on kind of traditional sort of mining exploration company. Maybe you could give us an overview on the positioning and then the Indigenous aspect of it.
Sure. So the mining royalty model is essentially, you pool together different royalties into a single vehicle. And the reason why you do this, and it's a bit counterintuitive or certainly not that common, but in most things in life, if you buy them in bulk, you'll typically get a discount, right? If you buy 10, you pay less per unit than you buy one. But mining royalties work the exact opposite way. And if you want to buy 10 royalties, you will pay more than 10 times as much as what it would cost you to buy one. And it's because the product you're buying as a portfolio, it's the same return, but it ends up having a lower risk. Like for a single royalty, it's going to take one mine failure for that to go to zero. If you're buying 10 royalties, then it's going to take 10 different mine failures to go to zero. It's a much different risk profile, right? So long story short, as you pool the royalties together, they're worth more. And the mining royalty model is the business model that exists that does that. And the twist at Nations Royalty is we are a majority Indigenous-owned company. Our founding nation is the Nisga'a Nation. They own 75%. It's the first of its kind in Canada. And we're in the business of pooling together Indigenous-owned royalties, which they received as a mine goes through the project stage. It'll often hit a point where it'll enter into an impact and benefit agreement with the mining company, and often in those agreements there can be a royalty to the Indigenous group. So those are the royalties we're looking to collaborate and bring together. And ultimately we think the Indigenous peoples of Canada should just field a mining royalty company of their own. Because the two biggest challenges I'd say in the mining royalty space right now are one, ability to grow, because it's hard to find new assets in safe jurisdictions that are advanced economic stage, and two, the fierce competition. There's probably 20 different royalty companies out there, a new one every 6 months that kind of have to figure out a way to make their niche. And we believe the Indigenous peoples of Canada have a huge advantage in being able to tackle those two issues because they have advanced stage royalties all across this country, and obviously they're in Canada. So a portfolio of, say, the top Canadian Indigenous royalties, we believe would be a pretty strong force in the mining scene.
And so in terms of what Nations has on its royalty sort of portfolio, could you maybe give us some highlights? Do you have any that are currently generating revenue?
Sure, yeah. So again, all these royalties, there's 5 of them. They're all from the Nisga'a Nation, our founding shareholder at IPO. In production right now, there's a royalty on the Brucejack gold mine, which is a high-grade underground gold mine, right? Owned and operated by Newmont. Produces about 310,000 ounces for 2024 is the guidance. There's also a royalty on the Premier mine and the Red Mountain mine. Those two assets together are owned by Ascot Resources. It had a tough 2024, unfortunately.
Ascot did.
Its share price got punished, and our share price got punished too as a
Right.
result, right? Because that was one in production for us. But thankfully, it's nice to see their debt get restructured. They launched a new equity financing. They've closed that, and they're now targeting restarting the mill in Q2 2025. So let's call that one near production. And then The other two royalties are development stage. The smaller of the two is on Kitsault, which is a fairly rare in that it's a pure molybdenum deposit essentially. It's privately owned by resource capital funds, and so presumably they'll be looking to go public, at some point in the next few years here, I'd imagine. And then the last royalty in our portfolio is the bulk of our value, probably about 70% of the NAV of the company. It's on KSM, which is it's owned by Seabridge Gold, about a couple $2 billion market cap. It is the largest fully permitted but undeveloped gold copper deposit in the world. It has over 47 million ounces of gold, over 7 billion pounds of copper in reserves. So it's crazy. It's, based on their PFS, it's supposed to produce 1.4 million ounces a year for 33 years. So to put that into context, the largest gold mine in Canada right now is Detour, about 700,000. So this is double the Detour for 33 years off reserves alone. But it requires a lot of capital to build that. It's a big capex, big price tag. So we at Nations Royalty are obviously hoping to see them get a partner, a JV partner, or an outright takeout to see that mine get built, because it's a big, meaningful royalty for us. And we'd love to get that paying.
Excellent. Thanks for giving us an overview. So in terms of what would be the ability to sort of acquire additional Indigenous royalties, does that not sort of defeat the purpose of having the Indigenous sort of royalty sort of in the first place if it gets acquired by a pubco, or how do you align those interests?
Well, so we're looking to do predominantly share transactions. So they will continue to own their royalty, but own it through a company with many other royalties in it. So they'll still maintain exposure to their assets. It's essentially the sharing of royalties between Indigenous groups. With it, fine, there's a small small non-Indigenous piece there we'll put in, but that's also important because that's what you need in order to get the premium pricing. And so let's say I'm an Indigenous group and I vend my assets into this vehicle. If say 10% are sold to the public for top dollar, that's helpful to my nation's balance sheet, because then the other 90% that I've retained is worth a lot more money. So the three main benefits is one, diversification. So these Indigenous groups, some of them, unfortunately, they have a huge part of their nation's net worth tied to a single mine. So they're one mine failure away from a pretty bad situation. Even if they're taking every penny as that royalty comes in and invest in a diversified portfolio, they might have a mine that's got 20, 30 years of life left in it. So they're still really exposed on that. The second is to bring value forward. So again, you can accelerate different things Indigenous groups would like to do more quickly. Instead of waiting 1 year at a time as that checks get paid, why not monetize it, bring forward all or even just a portion of those payments to the present and get going on things sooner than you like. And then the last one is to just get the mining royalty company benefit of really unlocking the premium valuation of what these assets are really worth when they're combined with similar assets. So we obviously hope the Indigenous groups continue to own their shares. We'd be looking to try to get a dividend going to help make that perhaps an even better idea. But we need to do one or two transactions first on revenue generating assets to make that a reality. Excellent.
And maybe you could just, you've walked us through kind of some of the percentage ownership. Maybe you could walk us through how many shares are outstanding, what's the current sort of approximate market cap?
Sure. So right now there's about 145 million shares outstanding. And the market cap right now is probably around Canadian 100, Canadian 110 million. So we're small for a mining royalty company, and a 50, 60, 70 million dollar Canadian new partnership would be very transformative and material to this company, right? That's the one benefit of being small, is if you find a high quality asset that's worth that 50 to 70 million bucks, that'll change the pro formas of our company substantially, right? As opposed to being a giant $30 billion royalty company and you buy something awesome for $100 million, it doesn't
move the needle.
Not really, not as much.
Yeah.
But.
So who was sort of the founding group that kind of helped kind of put this project together, this company together?
Sure. I mean, so there's a few key people involved. The first would be Rob McLeod. He's our interim CEO. He's a geologist by background. He has a very long family history with the Nisga'a Nation, and that history and relationship was a key part of establishing the trust required to launch an idea like this. And essentially, he was sitting down with Charles Morvan and other members of the Nisga'a Nation. They were just having a friendly chat and talking about how, he mentioned he thought their royalties must be worth quite a bit of money. He said, how much are they making? He said, about $1 million a year. And long story short, he started thinking, the present value of these royalties is actually far more substantial than some of your development stage royalties. They still have a value today. So they ran it through a model, came up with a one times NAV a little over $200 million US. And he thought like, wow, that's actually a heck of a lot of value. And then he took that idea to Frank Justra, who's the head of the Fiore Group. We got Frank involved, who's also the founder of Wheaton Precious Metals, the largest mining royalty company in the world. So he knows a lot about how to build a mining royalty company. And basically between the Nishka and the Fiore Group and Rob and Frank, this idea was born. And it took some time to, iron out all the wrinkles, but we launched in June, and that's kind of the backstory to it. The quick version, at least.
Excellent. And so you joined in July or thereabouts, sometime
Yep.
this past summer. What's been keeping you busy? What do you sort of tackle with the company?
So I spend, so we've got one partnership with the Nisga'a Nation, but this company right now is in execution mode, and what makes this company is new partnerships, showing that one, yes, there's other Indigenous groups that are willing to join this model, and two, to highlight the strength of this untapped opportunity set. That there are, in fact, very high quality top line NSR royalties on amazing assets that are operating in Canada today, owned by Indigenous peoples. So I spend most of my time speaking with different Indigenous groups and helping advance forward those sort of partnerships. That's where most of my time is spent.
And what would be a couple of key catalysts that investors should watch out for over the next 6 months?
Right. So the main two catalysts is really, I guess, any positive news on any of your current assets. So on that one, it would be, if it's 6 months, that would be the restart of Ascot Resources in Q2 2025. That'd be one to watch. That'd be helpful for our stock. And then any changing of Seabridge Gold's status on, is there any JV partner there or what? But really the biggest catalyst is going to be the announcement of a new partnership, because that's what's going to kind of wake the world up to this model and see that there's other groups that are, see the merits to it.
Right. Well, hey, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day here at the conference and spending a few minutes with us and allowing you to sort of share the story. Really a pleasure to meet you, and sounds like a wonderfully positioned company. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.
All right.